Right, episode 20. We've made it to another milestone for the podcast. Thank you so much for the support so far. It's been incredible, and thanks for tuning in again to another episode. And it's a special one today. In this episode, I spoke to Sonya Barlow, the founder of LMF Network, an initiative to empower and promote diversity in tech. She's been named one of the most influential women in tech by ComputerWeekly.com, and we discuss her life right now as a freelance speaker and tech consultant, hosting workshops and talks for the likes of PwC, Vodafone, Royal Mail, just to name a few. We discuss how she's become the go-to woman for diversity in tech and building this platform job for herself in the space of only 18 months. And of course, I think more important than anything, we talk about the difficulties she's faced and is currently facing in terms of workload, relationships with social media, financial difficulty with attracting paid clients, and the longevity of this platform she's built for herself. Trust me, you want to stay for this bit because it was truly humbling and inspiring. And we finish off with how she's delivered 2 TED Talks, making it the first ever South Asian woman to have delivered 2 TED Talks in a single year. It was really inspiring, and yeah, I really think I should invite her back on. But let me know if you do enjoy this episode. Let me know if you want Sonya back on the podcast. I personally do, and we can arrange it. And also, if you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and a written review. If you leave a written review, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. This week's shout out actually goes to one of my friends called Jamie Foster. He couldn't leave a review because he's on Android. If you are on Android, just give me a message and I'll give you a shout out. Because I understand it's a bit of a stupid system, but I can't help it. So this is the alternative. And he just basically wanted to say he enjoys the podcast. His favorite episode was the one on mental health that I did a few weeks ago with Damien. And if you haven't checked the one with Damien out, it's a really, really good episode. One of my personal favorites. And we both open up and it was a really, really good episode. But anyway, if you do want to stay in touch with all the future episodes, be sure to follow us on our Instagram page. That's where all the new episodes get announced. And yeah, without further ado, let's get on with the episode. Hey Sonya, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Massive pleasure to have you on. And as I said in the pre-chat, I've been wanting to have you on for so long because I think the conversation we're going to have today is going to be so useful for a lot of people, and you're very open and honest, which I really like, and it's not something you always get with a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's a real big factor as to why I wanted you on in the first place.
Thank you. To be honest, it's only been a few months maybe since I even called myself an entrepreneur. And I think that's why I am so open and honest, is because I didn't really put myself in that category. I'm just a person trying to do something. So I always say that all of the labels that have been put on top of me were not actually put via myself. They were put via other people.
Does it kind of like cringe you out in a way? Like maybe in the early stage, not so much now, but at the beginning you were like, I don't really know if that's me.
Yeah, completely. I mean, sometimes even now, I don't know if it's me. I've learned that if you call yourself a founder, a CEO, director, people will take you slightly more seriously. Same as an entrepreneur. So I very much advocate this now and champion the fact that you have to be living like your future self in your present day. I don't mean that by spending habits, and I definitely don't mean it by kind of, overwhelming yourself and kind of white lies. What I mean by that is if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a founder, if you are going to be a business coach and consultant, if you're going to be even a podcast host or a public speaker, you have to know exactly what qualities and what kind of accreditation those personas need in the future, and you need to start working on them today to get there in the future. I get really irritated. Actually, I got irritated today, I'll tell you. There's another network I know that I went on their profile and they were like award winning, and I'm like, you're not award winning, you've never won an award, so don't.
Oh, you see that all the time. You see that all the time.
Like you've done it, because some of us have actually gone out there and worked really hard to win some. But if you call yourself something like future award winning, or you're forecasting the award, yeah, that's completely fine, and live as that self. But don't, I'm going around being like, I'm an entrepreneur because I founded a business, but it's taken me 2 years of a side hustle and 6 months of trying to do it full time for me to even get to that stage. And I think what people need is the hustle comes, and it takes time before you can start putting yourself out there like that.
Yeah, like I get it in a way. I don't like that either. I'm like you. I don't like that at all. But at the same time, I realize and I get the sort of perspective that people would be like, the whole fake it till you make it mentality. I kind of get it. And like I'm not that sort of person. However, I understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the fake it till you make it. So I'm a believer of that. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
fake it till I make it, in the sense that it's the same. My podcast goes called Strategically Winging It. So the point being that if I think I can do something, then I'll carry it on. But if I am pretending to be something I'm not down for that. I am a very honest and transparent entrepreneur, founder, person, let's say. So for me, it just we're all here to be collaborative, and I think when we start pretending to be people we're not, you're gonna get caught out, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And that's not at all to say people can't be founders and can't be entrepreneurs and can't be CEOs. Of course you can. But for you to be there and for you to thrive, you need to know what is your USP and what really makes you different. And I think that's really important in understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And I really want to, before we kind of move on, I really want people to like really get to know who you are and what you do on a day-to-day basis. How did you get into what you do right now?
Do you know what? The first answer is I'm not really sure. So I want everyone to realize that there's an honesty there. I'm not really sure. How did I get into where I am? So, long story short, I graduated in 2015 and fell into the world of tech. So, tech consultancy, digital transformation, insights and analytics. Worked my way up in technology, but between my first and second job role and kind of promotion, I found myself feeling quite lost and not having a sense of community. And I think it really hit me when I was moving from my first to second role, and I thought, well, I'm not having a leaving party, and no one even knows I'm leaving. And I remember just walking into work and giving my laptop, and they asked me to stay till like 5 p.m., but I was like, no, I'm good. So I like left at 3, but I didn't have anyone to celebrate. People have like leaving drinks and leaving parties and leaving celebrations.
Yeah, like
That.
no one cares.
Exactly. And no one cared. And I'd been there for 2 years and no one cared. And I
Wow.
think it really struck me that I didn't have that like community or that friendship group. And then I looked around me, and the same I could have said around my kind of friends as well. I guess my friends from university were awesome, but we were living such separate lives. I didn't really have anyone that was quite ambitious or in the same circle as me. And so I contacted one of my really good friends from university, was like, look, we need to get out our network. I'm tired of just being like someone's employee or someone's sister or someone's daughter. I need to be like, who am I, basically? What's my identity? And so we went around London looking for kind of networking groups and membership clubs. To be very honest, we went to one, it was super expensive, and I came out of it very frustrated and quite annoyed, being like, why would I pay so much money to meet people? Like, what is that going to do for me? And so, long story short, I just created one overnight on LinkedIn. I just went on LinkedIn, reactivated my profile, only had like 100 or 200 people on it, I think around the 200 mark. I created a closed LinkedIn
Wow.
group, invited people that I knew, which probably didn't serve the purpose.
Yeah.
Started sharing content that was relevant to work and progression, and then made a brunch 2 weeks after. Was like, yeah, brunch. I love avocados. Everyone loves avocados. It's gonna be. Showed up to brunch. After 5 minutes, they
Yeah.
asked for the table back because no one wanted to come, and no one came. And from there,
So it was just
yeah, it's
you.
just basically me and my bestie Dewey. But yeah, it was just me. So Dewey came for like moral support.
Wow.
So 12 people said they
Yeah.
were going to come, and 12 people got the Eventbrite tickets, and no one showed up. So there are a few learnings at that. The first learning was, free Eventbrite tickets, know that there's going to be a drop off. So I think that was the first learning. But the second and the most important learning was, why would people come when they don't know you, right? People buy into people. People buy into people's stories.
Yeah.
Um, and then so kind of, I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but just to kind of summarize, no one showed up. And normally I get the question, well, why did you carry on? To be honest, I was already in such a bad place that it would have made no difference to me if I carried on, because I was already feeling so crappy about myself. And I did carry on. So I carried on, created another branch, created another branch. By the third branch, people came. And that was kind of June is when I started. In October we had our first offline event planned, and Jan 2019 is really when I thought, and I was transitioning between roles, and I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to give it a whirl. Like, I'll make a few coffee events, I'll make a few meetups, I'll just kind of say yes to things that I can do 10% of, and why not just give it a go. And then that was in Jan 2019. By October, May 2019, I decided I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go into an accelerator. I'm going to take this full time. And I did. And so in
Wow.
2019, I personally delivered over 50 workshops, upskilled over 1,200 people, did 2 TED Talks, multiple European keynotes, even got asked to write a kind of co-author a chapter in a book, which was great, like an ebook online with my story, which was really cool. And then in 2020 started, obviously around Christmas time, everything is dead. Got to about February and completely fell out of love with what I was doing, because I realized it was a limited company, and the motive seemed to be making money, whereas it wasn't about making money. March we shifted to a CFP, which is a charitable style company. It's a not for profit, and today I'm sitting in July with one business which is very much split into two. So LMF Network has a community angle, which is accessible, affordable, and very much works to enable and educate women and minoritized groups in tech, business, and entrepreneurship. And then I have a consultancy arm where I do freelance consultancy work, freelance workshop facilitation, diversity and inclusion training, article writing, and so forth. So that's kind of where I'm at today. So I've kind of gone from, in 18 months, not knowing anyone and not knowing anything, to running 2 businesses and trying to figure out everything.
Yeah. It sounds like crazy quick. It sounds like almost unbelievably quick, because how did you go from how did you go from that moment of no one coming to that brunch event that you made to like delivering TED Talks to being a co-author on a book in the space of such a short amount of time?
Do you know, honestly, I think a lot of it is to do with your own hustle and your own self-worth. What that means is I didn't start this journey thinking I was anyone or anything. Um, and also, you have to be afraid to not ask for help and not to put yourself forward for opportunities. I started my year in 2019 being like, right, I'm going to think like a man. And what that basically means is, if you think psychologically and society wise, men tend to, and I'm talking very generalistic here, right? Men tend to swipe right to a lot more opportunities than they swipe left, and they tend to have more confidence in their ability and kind of wing it and try it as they go along. So I thought of taking that opportunity and that mentality, being like, well, if I think I can do 10% of something, I'm going to go for it. That's very much how it started. Um, and that's something I am very proud of from a mentality perspective. I went from having absolutely no social media and no content or context of anything, with no understanding, to May 2018 is when I started my LinkedIn up again. I didn't really use it until January 2019. I didn't get Instagram until a year ago, so we're talking kind of April, May 2019, and barely used it. So if
Wow.
anything, it's COVID that's accelerated the growth, because I kind of had to focus on my online presence and personal brand. So yeah, so kind of 3 months ago, even my Instagram following was like, what, 700 people, and is growing daily, which is great. But I don't use it for anything more than making and driving impact. And I guess, anyone
Yeah.
listening, my question would be, what kind of impact do you want to drive? For me, honestly, making a lot of money is not impactful. For me, upskilling and helping the world and making people believe in themselves is what I want to be doing.
I really want to delve deeper into this because the journey sounds like incredible. Like, what were the first sort of steps to like kind of where you are now? when you had that brunch event, what was the sort of like next immediate sort of stages?
When I had the brunch event and no one showed up, honestly, I cried. I just sat there. I had a full face of makeup. I had my favorite top on. I just cried. And I cried because I kind of felt sorry for myself. And I was like, oh, no one wants to be with me. No one wants to be here, etc., etc. And I remember Dewey was sitting next to me. And Dewey's my really good friend from university. And she has always been like a mentor to me, if that makes sense, which is quite weird because we're similar ages, but she's just like the one of the wisest people I know. Anyway, so the point being that she was like, "It'll be fine," and I was like, "Will it?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she took me for ice cream afterwards in Borough Market. And she's like, "Look, let's go get you some ice cream. Let's make you feel better." I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's fine." I came out of that though. No, I didn't tell anyone that no one showed up. I was so ashamed of
Yeah.
myself that I said to people, "Yeah, 7 people showed up and it was great." And I like made up this whole lie in my head, which I shouldn't have done. But at that moment, I was super ashamed of the fact that no one did. Um, but I wanted to give it another go because I already felt so bad in myself. And what I mean by I felt bad, maybe to really expand, is mentally I wasn't in the best place. Psychologically, I was unsure of what I wanted to do in the future and what I wanted to do with my next steps. I was also working in consultancy, which meant that every other week I'd be in Germany for a few days, and I also didn't have any friends or relationships there. Then I'd come back to London, and so basically I didn't feel settled and I didn't feel stable. Um, and so I was like, well, I possibly can't feel worse than this. I might as well just give it another shot. And then I did. And turns out people buy into people. So when I started putting maybe my face to the name, when I started sharing why I'm doing it, when I actively started, adding people on LinkedIn, for example, and sharing the great work we're doing and showcasing why they should attend, that made it a lot better. Because when I left my first role, I left with such. I was so happy to leave that I also deleted and I don't know why, but like unfollowed a lot of people from work that I used to work with, which made no sense if you think about it. But I did that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's yeah. They didn't get you they didn't get you a leaving
I
party or
mean,
anything
like,
like
where
that.
was my
So.
leaving cake? Like, where was my leaving cake? Where was my leaving cake?
Are you still a bit salty
Honestly,
about
I think it
that?
sounds like it, doesn't it? Um, to be honest, this is probably the first time I've been so salty about this since I've left. So, yeah.
That's okay. Everyone comes on the podcast to just rant about stuff.
No, but I think that's just a sentiment that people will understand is when you've been somewhere for so long and you feel like you're not valued. That's what I felt like. I felt like I was
Yeah.
valued. That you don't necessarily know how to act and how to react. And when you don't necessarily have a sense of community offline, you go online. And the great thing about being online is there is so much tech that we now can use to form a community. So my first TED talk that I did in May 2019 was called that. It was very much called Please Come Online. It's how we can use tech to build community. And the reason for that is like I've just mentioned, I didn't feel like I had one offline. So coming online made everything seem so much easier and accessible. Um, and I definitely think that we as individuals have not been necessarily taught or influenced or educated on how we can use our online presence or our online forums or our online brand to really bring successful people together and to feel like we belong. And ultimately that's what I'm doing in life, right? I'm changing the narrative of inclusion and I'm helping people to belong because that's what I want my life's mission to be.
Was that your ambition from the very start when so that first brunch and everything, was that your ambition was around sort of diversity and inclusion? Was that your passion from day one?
No, definitely not. My passion was um slightly more selfish than that. It was just to find new friends. Like the rest of it just came naturally. The reason for brunch was just because I felt like I didn't have any friends and I really wanted some. That was it.
So it's just to network and to make friends with people. Wow, it's a lot more of a pure intention than I thought it
No, my
was. But
intention was slightly more selfish. It was very much please can I surround myself with great people who get me and I get them and we want to help each other grow. There was never an intent to even do more than one brunch. There was never an intent to do a workshop. There was absolutely no intent to 18 months down the line decline a job offer and try and make it full time. Never, ever.
So how did those intentions change? What changed them?
I think I changed firstly when you start to know yourself and your identity and your value proposition. And what I mean by that is I worked in tech, so I had loads of I wouldn't say so I had like loads of opportunities as a brown woman in tech. I know I was making quite a good amount money wise. And I was living that I didn't have to think twice about anything, let's say, from a financial materialistic perspective. But that just wasn't bringing me joy. So when I started doing these workshops and I started building community and I started helping people and talking to people, I realized what was really happening was I was bringing joy to others and I was supporting them, but I was also bringing joy to myself. And then so I started to reflect within my value proposition and think, right, what really drives me? What are my value drivers? What are my core principles? How do I want to live in life? Um, and so I was doing that naturally as on the side and kind of saying yes to things that come along. And if more than three people came with a problem, I'd be like, right, let's make this into an event or workshop because it's easy and we can do that. And it was really easy for me and I could do it. Um, Building a community. And what I mean by that is we don't have a membership by design. Inviting people to come
Yeah.
along to our events and workshops has always been fairly easy and it's always been well received. So that's great. What really changed is in the last workplace that I worked in, the corporate structure, I found myself in quite a toxic environment personally. It wasn't healthy for me. Um, and I wasn't enjoying myself, and nor did I feel like I was progressing um, into the person I wanted to be and wanted to become. And so it was a matter of putting my mental health first and putting my kind of your principles first. I have to admit, yes, I was in a privileged position that I had savings, so I could afford to leave my job. I was also in a privileged position that um, I spoke about it with my family and my partner and my friends before I left, so that I could see what was going to work. And I've kind of given myself 12 months to 18 months to see it work, right? So I had some kind of strategy beforehand, not exactly, but some kind. But the point being, it was well, if I don't take that leap of faith now, when will I? And I guess for everyone listening, the message here is if I can do it from such a basic intent, so can you. But what you have to carry on doing is you have to stay consistent. So I give you a really good example. I was just reflecting yesterday actually that I started this like IGTV live series and I did it for like a month and I stopped. I started this personal brand workshop, which I did, and I did it for about a couple of weeks and I stopped. Why did I stop? I don't know. So the point being that you have to be consistent, and when you want to stop, that's probably when you have to carry on going because it's not time to stop yet. That's when you're probably going to peak and there's going to be momentum. So don't be afraid to try and don't be afraid to carry on, and most importantly, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, whatever zone that may be.
Yeah, like it's the same thing with this podcast. Like in the early stages, in the early to like mid stages, like the initial sort of like novelty of starting a podcast and the actual sort of like no one's really like not that many people are listening, that kind of got to me, and I was like, do I actually carry on or do I just like call it a day? Because it's just I don't know if there's going to be a future, but like the first stage where you have that passion and that drives you, but then it kind of gets to a point where the passion's still there, but you reach something and it's you reach like a I don't know a bad bit in the road and you don't really know where to go from there, and that's where I hit. And I don't know what it was. I think it was the passion just overtook it, and I carried on to the point where I love doing it now, and like we got sponsorship and I get to speak to amazing guests. That's a really cool thing, and so I think I massively agree with you on that.
So honestly, if I'm being really truthful, even with my own podcast, there's a couple of weeks where I just could not do it. I just didn't love it. I didn't love myself. I didn't know what I was doing. And I think it was after my 5th episode where I was like, why the hell am I doing this? And do you know what? It's okay to have those thoughts. You just have to be kind to yourself, and you have to give yourself a moment just to breathe and come back to the passion point in the area. And so last week I came back and I was like, it's fine. I've got 2 people recorded. I'm going to edit them. I pushed them out. Great. They were really well received. I have 1 more to push out. Great. It's really well received. Why did I not enjoy it? Turns out I didn't enjoy it because I was pre-recording everything months or weeks in advance and not giving myself enough time to get it out. Turns out I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to get something out every week when I knew I had other commitments. Turns out I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to tell, stories of diverse founders, but within kind of a bubble or a bucket that I'd created. So the point being that it's okay to take a breather and to take some space and take stock. I've done that. What are my learnings? Well, I'm only going to record when I'm going to push that episode out. So if I record today, I'm going to push it out tomorrow. That's the vibe I'm going to now have. So I don't have things kind of, just waiting and sitting there and laying that don't exist. I'm not going to worry too much about the solid kind of different branding of it. I made my podcast its own Instagram, its own Twitter. Turns out I absolutely dislike doing social media in that capacity. So I closed those accounts and I'm just doing it through my own profile now. So it's, how can you make things easier for yourself and still get the content out there and still have people enjoy it? And equally, I've just made a speaker form so that people can get involved and sign up as speakers so that I don't necessarily have to go out chasing, but I can definitely provide opportunities to other people who may not have had them beforehand. So my point being, make it easier for yourself and make it fun for yourself.
And also, like, it's not the same formula for everyone as well. Like, you like doing things, as in, like, the podcast, you like to record today, release tomorrow. For me, I like to dedicate a day for podcasting. I'm like, this is my podcasting day. I'm going to record like 2 episodes and then I'll edit them and I'll sort of schedule the posts and stuff, and then I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the week. That's just how I work, and it's fine. Like, people just work in different ways.
Yeah, and you're completely right? Like, I thought that. I was like, right, Mondays are going to be my podcasting days. I'm going to put them out on a Friday. Turns out it wasn't possible. And then alongside that, I'm also doing another podcast called Log Kya Kahenge, which means what will people say? My co-founder is far more organized and scheduled than I am. And even for that podcast, I do all of the editing. So I have to also manage that in between. And it just turned out that I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver content for the sake of doing it. But now I want to just do content when it's rich and it's valuable.
I really wanted to find out more about how Sonya's become the go-to woman when it comes to diversity in tech, doing workshops at huge companies such as PwC and King, across, multiple different countries. And I really wanted to find out more about the first ever client she got, the first ever, paid and unpaid client. And also, I really wanted to find out, was there any moments in her really early journey where she questioned herself, she questioned her worth? And we get to talk about that. It's really, really humbling.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the first one that I wasn't paid for, and then I'll tell you when I did start getting paid. So Jan 2019, I had a lady that I knew in my network who worked for Santander, and Santander HQ were looking for someone to come in and give a workshop on confidence imposter syndrome. So she plugged me in and they gave it to me. They paid me nothing, right? So I'm talking a whole day's worth of work that if I was going in hindsight would probably be worth like $2,500. I got paid nothing. They paid for my train tickets from London and back and for lunch. So that was my first proper gig with a headquarters. They did not give me a testimonial. They didn't give me any money. That was Jan 2019.
Okay.
Now, I should probably go back to them at some point and be like, what the hell? Or at least give me a testimonial. But, the point is.
Yeah. That's the least they can do, really.
Exactly. So that was nothing. I got to October 2019 and I had a team from PwC approach me to do a training gig for them. And I was like, yeah, I'll be more than happy to completely can do that. That was the first time I got paid, as in properly, because I asked for the money, and I put value on myself. The only thing that I'd like to make clear within these timelines is that I was working for a corporate from February to October. So when you have a salary coming in that's stable, sometimes you don't need to put the same amount of value or worth on yourself. And it's not, sorry, what I'm trying to say is it's not you don't need to, it's you don't think you need to, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
And so I
great
didn't.
point.
And so I was like, right, I have a stable income coming in, that I'm doing a job, and I was working like 50 hours a week doing consultancy all across the UK. And I was doing this on the side. I was like, yeah, great. Okay, well, I've got money from there, so I can just build up my kind of portfolio. In October, when I didn't have the same amount of income, PwC was my first one. So that was epic. That was really great. But at the same time, I wasn't allowed, they didn't give me a testimonial, but they gave me money. Whatever the internal policies were, whatever, no need to go into that. But the point being that I was still learning how
Yeah.
to craft my own terms and conditions and my own resources, and what do I need from people when I do these gigs for them. Then in November was beautiful. November, I had a recommendation, and I got a gig with King, who were the founders of Candy Crush. And they flew me out to Berlin for the night, and I did their workshop for their cohort on neurodiversity and diversity. And not only did I get paid for that, but they also treated me and welcomed me so warmly that was the moment where I was like, right, I think I can do this, and I really enjoy doing that. I really enjoy doing it. So November, I went back to my family, and I was like, look, I've decided that I'm not going to go back to work for someone else in the same capacity, 9 to 5 for 5 days a week. I'm going to try and figure this out myself, and try and get consultancy gigs, and try and get training workshops, and try to really start my own impactful journey in the D&I space. And that's what I've been doing since.
I know COVID happened and it's a difficult time for everyone and companies don't have as much budget, but was there any like moments where those, the jobs weren't coming in as much, where, you questioned the self-worth?
Yeah, of course. That's such a great question. Yeah, there was. So March, half of my income was wiped out. April, I earned nothing. So just to put it into perspective, yeah. May, I had something. June's been a healthy month. So April, I kind of had to curl up on my bed and feel really sorry for myself for a few days. I think ate a lot of Ben and Jerry's. Even started baking to see if that made me feel better. Went on a few jogs to see if that would help. So kind of went down, the feel sorry for yourself uh, kind of vibe that one does. But then in May, I was like, right, do you know what? We just have to get back up and start again. In April, we ran 21 virtual webinars via the LMF network for free and upskilled over 786 people, which was great. In May, I started building my personal branding and LinkedIn course and started reaching out to new business to see what we could do for them virtually, which was really good. But kind of between June and July, a part of me is thinking, right, do I need to go back to work? Do I need to get a part-time job? Do I need to find another source of income? And I think there was a part of me, if I'm being really honest, and I know you want honesty, there's a part of me that thought, right, if I go back to work, I'm losing. And it's not I'm failing, it's I'm losing.
No, I completely understand what you
But
mean.
I
I
have
completely understand what you
but
mean.
I yeah, and I've been really battling with it. I've been battling with it for the last few weeks, being like, am I losing? Am I not doing it right if I go back to work? And what I've realized is there is no such thing as win or lose. There is what's relevant, what's clear, what's important. And right now, I have to think about my priorities. If I am not able to earn the same amount or a stable income being a freelancer, and it's taking me more time to hustle and to graft to basically put food on the table, then maybe I need to prioritize that stable income through another means of income at the moment. That does not mean you're losing, and it does not mean you failed as an entrepreneur, as a founder. It just means momentarily there's something that's disrupting you, and you need to prioritize where you are and what you're doing. So even now, I'm like, you know what, if I get something for 2 days a week, I'll be fine with that. That's fine. What I know I don't want is, I know I don't want something 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, where I'm working for someone else and not able to focus on my own. So you have to compromise.
How have you been able to deal with all of that?
Mm, I think a part of it yourself is staying grounded. I'm really fortunate that I live around my family. So as much as I'm hustling, my siblings and my mum, often make fun of me, being like, "All you do all day is you talk on the phone." They're like, "Is that what business people do?" Like, or they'll be,
I get that as well.
yeah, or they'll be like, "You don't even have a job." I'm like, "I'm literally running my own business." They're like, "Yeah, but you don't really have a job. All you do is talk on the phone and record yourself on Zoom." I'm like, "Okay, yeah." Um, so you have to bring the humor back into it and kind of humble yourself. The other thing is you have to set boundaries. So I realized that I was drowning myself in social media, and I already know I have a really toxic relationship with social media if I'm on it too long. So I set myself boundaries, i.e., I won't go on it on the whole of Saturday. I just won't be on social media. I've started using scheduling tools to schedule things, especially on the LMF at Instagram, which I do myself, but sometimes it's just really difficult to understand what to do next. Equally, uh, I've been really honest with the team and the friends I have around me, just to be like, look, if I'm having a bad day, a bad mental health day, I just can't do anything. I'm so sorry. And other people are quite understanding. The other thing that you do, if you were to think like pragmatic steps, is to think what your successes have been so far, to prioritize what you want to do versus what you can do, versus what is necessary to bring the income in. And lastly, to be kind to yourself so that you're not putting so much pressure in the areas that don't need to be. So, really good example being that if I were on a run, like, 2 webinars a month for free, okay, great. But think about the time of effort and the time that goes into these webinars. Versus if I can do one a month for the community and one a month which is paid or donated, okay, maybe that would be a better use of my time. So think about where your time and effort is going. Um, I I'm very honest, especially on my social media, especially on my Instagram, about how mentally I'm affected, and how I have mental health, how I suffer from mental health issues, and how I have chronic migraines, and how they really do play up. But at the same time, what can you do? All last week I had a chronic migraine, and at 6 p.m. I had a workshop that I had to host for 150 people. Now I couldn't stop it, but you're self-employed, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, I remember actually looking at your social media. Like, I don't know if we had a podcast schedule, but you couldn't. I can't remember if that happened. But yeah, and you were very honest with everyone, and you were like, yeah, this is the situation, and this is why this is happening, and I think people like that. I definitely did. I definitely like the openness, and yeah, I thought, this is when you say, people buy into people, that made me buy into you a lot more, for sure.
Hmm. Thank you. I mean, that's great. I'm actually really happy you said that. Do you know what it is? It's, you just want to be your truest, most authentic self. I don't want people to buy into a product or myself or my business or my community if they don't know what they're getting with it as a package. And I think and unfortunately, there's a lot of sheltered discussions, and a lot of kind of pretend and pretense, that's especially online, online everyone looks like they're super successful and they only show you the good stuff. That's fine. I want to show you the good stuff, but I also want to show you the bad stuff. I also want to tell you that, my 12-hour days, sometimes I forget to eat and sometimes I forget to drink water because I am online trying to figure out what my next move is. There are moments where I will go out with friends or family and I will specifically say, look, all our phones have to go on airplane mode because we just need to spend an hour in this moment and not worry about anything else. There are times where I suffer so much from comparing myself to my friends or my peers or my colleagues that I have
It's the worst thing to do.
100%.
Absolutely
Yeah,
the worst thing to
that I
do.
have to go back and I have to go back to my notebook in my head to be like, right, what are the great things I've achieved? What have I done? What am I doing in the future? And what are my goals? And where do they align? And actually, just
Yeah.
last week, one of my best friends bought me a gratitude journal. And she goes, I know that I use my phone a lot to type notes. And she was like, look, here's a gratitude journal. I need you to every day wake up and to write things and to remember what you've written and to feel it, to write it down and to really feel it. She goes, because I've seen where you are and what you're doing. And I'm very proud, but at the same time, I'm concerned as a friend. So I just need you to kind of come back to this point of like sanity. And I think that's really important.
It's really funny you say that because two episodes ago I spoke to this guy called Damien and we actually talked about this for a long time about comparing yourself to other people, mental health and all of this stuff. And yeah, if anyone's like listening and wants to know more about that, he was really really good on that. And Sonia, I want to finish with one thing because I've been like dying to ask you this, but the conversation's been like immensely interesting. So one thing like led to another. How did you do the TED Talks? How did that happen?
I thank you. Yeah.
Because
So,
it looks so cool.
do you know the honest truth is? So let me give you the timeline. I was one of the people that helped to create TEDx Square Mile. So they had a TED Talk event in 2019 in March, and I was one of the background like kind of team members that helped to champion it. But the day of the TED Talk itself, I had such a bad migraine that I couldn't show up on the day. So imagine you've put in like a year's work on and off with this team and you can't even go show up. Then in April, the University of Sussex, they reached out to me online, I believe it was, and were like, "We're looking for someone to host our TED talk that we're doing in our university. Would you be able?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great. Like, of course, I'd love to do one myself." So now I'm getting another view of the background. I went on the website for TEDx Forward, knowing how the process works for TEDx Square Mile and the process for TEDx Sussex University, and I reached out to kind of a bunch of TEDx's in a community or surrounding area to ask if they had any availability for me to get involved more as a speaker, not as a TEDx speaker, but more as a host or a guest kind of panelist to come on board. I didn't think I was good enough, let's say, to actually to give a TED talk, but I knew that I could potentially host a session. And TEDx4 reached back and they were like, "We've seen your LinkedIn, we've seen your story, we think it's great. We actually have an opportunity for a speaker. Would you like to interview for it?" So TEDx is how they work, is you literally have to interview for them. Um,
I didn't know that.
yeah, so it's literally going through like 3 rounds, let's say. So everyone gives so the first round is you apply, then you get sieved, then you talk to the organizers and they kind of filter you out. So you'd go from like 200 applications to like 10 people that can go on stage. So every year there's only like 2,500 people that get a TED talk or a TEDx talk, let's say. And so long story short, spoke to them, they were like, "Yeah, really like your story." Had to kind of sell myself a little bit, had about 2 phone conversations with them, and then they were like, "Right, do you know what, we'll get back to you in a week to see if we want to take you through." And then in the week they were like, "Yeah, we definitely want to take you through, thank you for that, work on your TED talk." Okay, great. So we did that, and they were based up in Manchester, so I was based in London, so everything we done was via Zoom. But the second one I did in December, there was someone on LinkedIn who wrote that she was organizing a TEDx conference, and it was on failure and it was on females. And at the same time, this was about end of October, beginning of November. That's when I was going through my own sense of failure, failing at work, not being able to start the degree that I wanted because I was actually meant to go back to university last year to start a PhD. and not really sure in myself once again. And so I reached out to her being like, look, I've got like, this is my story and my narrative. And she messaged back being like, oh, do you know what? We've been following you for a really long time, really impressed by what you do, and we wanted to talk to you for quite a while. So we do have an opportunity for this kind of TEDx conference. Do you mind dropping us an email to let us know what you would like to talk about? And I remember I wrote this email and they came back being like, oh, do you know what? That's not really the topic we're after. But if you could do something here, then maybe we can focus on that. So again, you go through kind of 4 or 5 email threads and 4 or 5 phone conversations before someone even says you
Wow.
do it. And then you do it, and then you're given anywhere between 6 weeks to like 3 months to prepare your talk. And then you go and deliver it on the stage.
I think that's an amazing note to actually end on. Sonya, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and you know, you've been really, really good to speak to and really honest and open, and yeah, I can't thank you enough, really.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come in and for asking me. I appreciate I talk a lot, but hopefully there's some great nuggets some people can take away from here.
No, I'm sure they can, like, definitely. Is there anything, like, how can people stay in touch with you, stay in touch with LMF Network in the meantime?
Yeah, so please do give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter, but I'm definitely more active on Instagram. So it's at Sonya Barlow UK, and add me on LinkedIn. You can just kind of Google me, Sonya Barlow, and it would come up. It's Sonya Barlow. And for LMF Network, we are at LMF Network on every social channel. And we do also have a mailing list that you can get in touch with and subscribe to, that shares all the opportunities. The network is inclusive, it is global, and we have chapters based in London, Madrid, and Toronto, so that we are accessing as many people as we can.
Sonya, I'm gonna have to invite you on a second time for sure, because there's so many things that I still want to ask you, but we've definitely run out of time. But yeah, massive privilege to have you on. Thank you again, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Millennial Entrepreneur. And how amazing was it? I had such a great time speaking to Sonya. She's a woman that I wanted to have on the podcast for so long, and yeah, massive privilege to have her on finally, after asking a lot of times. But yeah, it was really good, and I really hope that you enjoyed it as well as much as I did. And if you did, please be sure to leave a written review, 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, because if you do, you get a shout out on the next episode. I will read it out, and it really helps the channel as well. It really helps me. So yeah, thank you so much. And follow us on our Instagram page as well. Follow her on every social media, so LMF Network on her personal one. I'll leave all the links in the description. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. My name's been Sina. I'll see you later.